So I trigger to extremes. So I do get very angry. I get very upset. If I'm out of control, I need to control situations and conversations. And, if someone says something to me that makes me feel like a victim, then I just kind of lash out and try to defend myself without really even noticing. I'm a very, very loving person and I don't want to hurt people. But if I feel like I'm being attacked, then I just whoosh, I just force everybody to just listen to me. But then I also get triggered into a victim state of being when someone is a little more powerful with their energy, or if they think that I'm not telling the truth, or, with sharing my experience, people talk it down and minimize it in their own way. I accept that minimizing and I go back into this suppression of myself and just being the victim, and allow them to just run the conversation and just agree and just accept that, yeah, this is what I'm going through and there's nothing that can be done about it, or something like that.
For me, it definitely varies as well. Like sometimes I can go a few months and that's amazing. And then other times I find that it can be like many times a week that I feel triggered. I think it really depends on the time of year.
Something happened to my phone.
It can really depend on the time of year and like what my mental state is like. So definitely like ebbs and flows. So yeah, it's like healing. Like it's not a straight line. Like sometimes you're doing really well and then other times you're not. So yeah, depends.
For me, it's it also depends on what's going on in my life, or sometimes I even find I can get triggered even with what I'm watching on TV. It could be something that was said that relates to something that means something so much more different for me. Or even with my spouse now, there's things that he could tell me that's genuinely honest and I could read into it more than what it is, and it triggers me. So the weather as well, like October is the month where is my survival month. So when this weather comes around and it's October, these things trigger me as well. So yeah, that's generally what it is for me.
I'm more on the daily, time frame as far as triggers go. For most of my adulthood, I had a daily, just thought. It's at least like once a day. Sometimes I can go without noticing it, but if I think back, I can realize like the previous day I had a thought or something that reminded me. But it does come up more with the work that I'm doing, because I am talking about my experience more, and with me attempting to help other people, it ignites the thoughts and the reminders. So I'm learning to just kind of accept that that's a part of that process, and then learn to not let it bring me down as much as I used to when I wasn't working on it. So it's more of just being okay with the fact that something's going to remind me of what I went through, and just working with each moment. And I've done, my own therapies that have helped me overcome flashbacks in the past, which I'll share on another question. So it's kind of minimized the amount over time, but still something always reminds me on a daily basis. So, it's a process for sure.
For me, my triggers are pretty much almost daily, simply because my life, I just have so much going on. I'm a mom of two, and I'm homeschooling them right now. I work full time. I also have a business outside of that and a nonprofit. So just, feeling overwhelmed, that can be like really triggering because you're stressed, and then your night probably doesn't end until real late. People that have kids kind of know that. So you're not getting as much sleep as you need to. But like Kristin said, it's a process, you know, and you kind of learn how to adapt, and eventually you learn how to cope and get whatever process that works for you.
So I definitely experience triggers on the daily as well. It kind of depends how bad they are and how bad I am at coping with them, depending on the time of year. So this is my surviving month as well. So the anniversary is just passed, so that was really tough. And since my period was involved with my rape, I tend to get more triggered around that time of the month. But it kind of just depends for me as well. In the summer, I tend to do better, some seasonal affective things, I think. But yeah, it's on the daily for me as well, but kind of fluctuates.
So definitely, the anniversary is a huge trigger for me and a rough month, as other panelists have mentioned. Definitely something that I've noticed as a trigger, which took me a long time to realize, was that anytime I feel that someone that I'm close to me is upset with me, or disappointed, or I might feel harshly critiquing me, it really sends me into like an anxious place, and it's taken a long time to like realize that that's even a trigger. So yeah, kind of just I've felt like a very like desperate need to be seen as like good since my assault. So that's kind of like the biggest trigger that I'm working on right now, is like separating that critique and someone being upset with me from like who I am.
I feel like everything triggers me. Mostly what really gets under my skin, because I do paint homes for survivors. So I spend a lot of time with survivors that get healing from them too. And I've noticed with me, what's really been getting to me is when women are being sexualized on TV, or it's like they're made out to be dumb, and they're not fully clothed, and the men have everything on. And I'm like, why do they always have to make the women sound so unintelligent? So that will trigger me. And then if men stare at me, I get triggered. Like if I'm out and I can see them staring, I'm like, duh. Like it really gets under my skin. I even look to see if the person I'm dating now is staring, and does he think like this or not? And like, you know, it's just these thoughts that like take space in your head that literally don't pay rent, right? Like there's nothing to it, but to me, it feels like it's something that's relevant. Being talked down to, selfish people, arrogant people, people that speak with no empathy. Like when I hear their opinion, before I'd be like on it right away. I'd be like, why would you think like that? Like, what's wrong with you? What kind of human are you? Who raised you, right? But like now I've learned to, not everything's a fight. So I've learned to kind of not be so argumentative in people's opinions as much as I was, but it's definitely something that triggers me.
I just really want to first acknowledge all of you for really being here and being honest about this. I can feel myself, being triggered in this conversation. So I just want to thank you all for allowing yourselves to be in this position. And I want to say that it is, speaking about it, that's one of the main triggers for me. But what I've really understood is like you have to push through these things to heal and to help others. So I really thank you guys for doing this. A lot of triggers and a lot of various levels of triggering. So I trigger to extremes. So I do get very angry. I get very upset. If I'm out of control, I need to control situations and the conversations. And, if someone says something to me that makes me feel like a victim, then I just kind of lash out and try to defend myself without really even noticing. I'm a very, very loving person, and I don't want to hurt people. But if I feel like I'm being attacked, then I just whoosh, I just force everybody to just listen to me. But then I also get triggered into a victim state of being when someone is a little more powerful with their energy, or if they think that I'm not telling the truth, or, you know, with sharing my experience. If people talk it down and minimize it in their own way, I accept that minimizing, and I go back into this suppression of myself and just being the victim, and allow them to just run the conversation and just agree and just accept that, you know, yeah, this is what I'm going through and there's nothing that can be done about it, or something like that, you know. And other triggers throughout the years have changed, but one of the main ones was going to sleep at night. You know, that's when I was abused for many years as a child, and I've gotten past one of the main triggers with being with someone who attempted to, like a partner, you know, being in a relationship and they wanted to be intimate, but it reminded me of that moment and I just burst out crying. But after explaining it to that person, I felt better. But then over time, just going to sleep, you know, just closing my eyes, I just visualized the things that were happening to me at night. And also, I do have a stepdaughter. She's getting close to the age that I was abused, that I started being abused. So her way of dressing and, you know, trying to be this mature child, it's just like, no, cover yourself up. Like, you cannot be seen that way because someone might hurt you, you know. And it's just this fear of the repeating experience, which we talked to her and we're very open with her, so it's like not realistic, but in my mind it's just a fear. And definitely just, if, you know, hearing things on TV about sex and, you know, seeing kids and parents kissing each other as babies, you know, it's like weird to me, you know. And it's not anything sexual, but it's just like, I don't understand how that's possible because I experienced the negative side of it. And so it just triggers that, like, I'm so different than the rest of the world. And, you know, those things just kind of play out in daily life. So there's obviously more, but I'll go ahead and stop now.
For me, I can say like one of the main triggers is maybe like someone being passive aggressive. That kind of really, if I see someone being passive aggressive to someone, or talking to someone in a certain way, that can be really triggering for me. Someone trying to belittle someone, that can be really triggering. Large crowds have been triggering for me. I don't really go to grocery stores and things like that. I tend to really just, you know, do everything online because I don't like being in large crowds now. Feeling like I'm being watched from afar, that's triggering, or not even knowing that I'm being watched from afar, that's really triggering. So I'm always kind of like in fight or flight, watching, you know, my surroundings, being more alert and yelling. You know, when you've been around someone that just, I mean, you can literally be doing nothing and they just, I don't know, just start, you know, yelling at you for no reason, and just kind of like starting to poke at you and nitpick at you. That can be really triggering for me just because, I mean, I dealt with it for so long. So those are some things that are triggers for me.
So yeah, I kind of have a wide variety of triggers as well. Physical being anyone that looks like my perpetrator. Black cars really freak me out. Kind of the same thing as being alert. When I'm alone, I'm very like watching over my shoulder all the time. If I'm walking my dog, I'm watching over my shoulder all the time, which is kind of strange for me because it wasn't like someone jumped out of the bushes and attacked me. It was someone I knew. So I'm not really sure why that feeling happens, and that's something I'm working through. But those are really big for me. Anything that reminds me of my perpetrator, like seeing his name on things, someone with the same name, a similar name, anything like that. And then also physical touch. Anyone that like my boyfriend is very touchy feely, and a lot of the times I'm like, just stop. Like, you need to just get away from me because physical touch and like just aggressive touching, hugging, stuff like that really sets me off. So.
Okay. I would say yes. I have experienced consequences after being triggered. I'll be the first to admit that I don't always like handle them in the most productive way. I've definitely I can go from extremes. Like I can either like shut down and be like so quiet that people will wonder if I'm angry at them and I have to go tell them that I'm not after, or I will get angry, usually with people that I feel safest with and who deserve it the least, but just, and it's embarrassing, but it can get like personal, like everything that like just to make them almost like not feel what I'm feeling, but just like it's like my own self-esteem is like needs someone to be at my level as well. So yeah, it definitely takes a lot of apologizing after, and it doesn't make it right or fair to them. But you just all you can do is apologize and try to do better.
I'm in a 3-year relationship, and the first year was like, it was crazy because he had things he was working on, and so did I. And I was trying to explain to him, he didn't come from abuse, or he doesn't understand PTSD. And so he was kind of learning and trying to be nurturing to me too. So in the beginning, I caused a lot of chaos. I was drinking. I read into things too much. If he didn't return texts, I would think all day about what was going on in my head. And by the time I spoke to him, I had this whole narrative of like, you can't do this to me. And, you know, like I was so triggered. So I said like horrible things to him via text. And then when he came down and sat with me and spoke to me, I couldn't believe the things I had said. And I actually got pretty out of control at one point. I smashed our front door. It's a glass door. And I had kicked it. I was so in a rage. And my mind was angry about so many other things, and I had geared it towards him. And I actually it changed a lot of things for me, because that night when I smashed that door, I was my abuser. I was talking like him. I was saying things that he used to say to me to my new spouse, and I just like, but it really made me realize that's not who I want to be, and I need to work on those things. So that very ugly moment taught me a lot, and I'm very grateful that I'm not there anymore. It was a long process, but yes, I definitely had to face consequences. The door was $600, and what I did to him was like totally uncalled for, but I learned a lot from that. So yeah, not proud of it, but I'm here.
Yes, definitely. I have experienced consequences. I've been in a little over 7-year relationship with my wife, and we have also brought in her brother and sister to live with us at the beginning of our relationship. And at that point, I was fully diving into finally feeling and experiencing the fact that I needed to heal from my trauma. And I completely was an emotional wreck. I was depressed, I was anxious, I was like a lot of things. And so it really affected me in my relationship with her brother and sister, with our stepdaughter. They were children, and so I was very cold, but also very emotional. And so it created a very, very strained relationship between us. And so over the past couple of years, I've been able to come out of that and apologize and really recognize where they were just teenagers at the time. And they have gone through a lot, obviously, with them trying to live with me, you know, so they were going through things that triggered me, and it wasn't their fault. And so I really had to recognize and just control myself through my own healing. Like you mentioned, Sonia, like everybody's going through stuff, but sometimes you have to be the bigger person and recognize like your healing is a little more worse than mine is, you know, at this moment. And so I really apologized recently to as most of them that I could. And it's sad, you know. I just wish that I wasn't going through that at the time. I wish that I could have developed a very loving you know, welcoming, but I didn't learn that. I didn't learn how to have a loving parent-child relationship. So my way of parenting was very forceful, very demanding, very like, you know, my wife says like sergeant, like, you know, like a military. And my father wasn't in the military, but that's just kind of how I lived my life. So, and even in work experiences, I'm very independent. So I have a very strong personality, and people have had trouble dealing with that, you know. And like I said, I'm a very, very nice person, but it's it's difficult for people to handle, you know, too much if they're going through their own things. Friendships have been strained just because of miscommunications. Like I've been very closed as a person since my abuse, or I was, so I wasn't communicating about just life in general. So it affected like what people understood I was going through, and then they would react, and it would just we just went different ways because we weren't on the same page because I didn't communicate what I was going through. And I felt offended that they weren't there for me. But after the relationship ended, I realized like I didn't even tell them what I was really going through. I just assumed that they would just know and just be there for me, you know? And so those have been some major relationship things. And even just within myself, you know, being self-loathing and, you know, self-defeating thoughts. And that's like the main thing that's been just an effect of this is how I treat myself and how I have in the past. So I'm sure you can all relate, that that's a major part of it as well.
So I have experienced consequences for, you know, just the way that abuse has affected me in strained relationships with people. Like Kristin said, I mean, I can self-isolate or, you know, and that makes people feel like, oh, she's kind of ghosting our friendship or ghosting our relationship. Or maybe if, you know, I had strained relationships with my family at one point, my mom and my sisters, because, you know, they're watching this stuff go on. And I'm just kind of like, you know, you get in that defensive mode. And so, you know, that has strained our relationships, just the way I would react. And a lot of the times after it all, you know, you kind of have to deal with yourself because you know that the way that you're handling it, you're reacting more so than you're responding, you know? And so I had to deal with that. And even with my husband, like at the very beginning of our relationship, I almost used to like self-sabotage because I mean, you just don't really know how to receive, you know, a healthy love, you know, and things like that. So I have definitely like dealt with consequences, you know, in a way that I can react from, you know, a smaller scale or larger scale. And I have definitely learned from them. They've been a learning lesson. So I just take those lessons and apply them daily.
Yeah, so I would say that the consequences I've experienced are very similar to what everyone's already said. I feel like I have closed myself off quite a bit emotionally. Not so much that I'm not in touch with my emotions because I'm a counselor, so I have to be. By nature, I am, but in the sense that I have a hard time connecting as deeply with people that I met after I was abused. And so that's obviously affected my relationship quite a bit. It's been a rough year that we've been together because I haven't been able to get at that deep connection with him. But I also feel like it's not really a consequence, but I definitely skip out of events a lot or leave certain places when I am experiencing being triggered. So I feel like that in a sense is kind of a consequence as well because I miss out on a lot.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I don't always handle them well, but I do have like strategies that when I do them, they work relatively well. So for me, it's getting outside, it's like walking or running and just like feeling like fresh air and feeling out of an environment that I was in usually, and usually being by myself. I've also done, like, when that's not possible, I've done like meditation type things and stretching and breathing, and that is what helps to calm me down. But I will say, like, when I get angry, I haven't really found a good coping mechanism for working through that anger. So, I mean, if any other panelists have any suggestions, I'm very open to hearing them. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
It kind of varies for me what I do. I don't know. Inside my home, it's not what I look like outside, because like I'll blare music. I talk to myself. I'm like, okay, I'm triggered, right? So this isn't what it is. So like, I'm not in trouble. I didn't do anything. I'm okay. I'm safe. I like to cook too. So I find sometimes I can zone into like, okay, I'm going in the kitchen. I'm going to be in there for a bit, again with my music. Meditation and stuff worked well for me, but it depends on what it is. Like some things, when it comes to like, oh, you can cut the cord and you'll be okay, when I start thinking about it, I'm like, it's not that easy for me. So then I start telling myself this doesn't work. So I kind of like sabotage it. So like some things may work based on, I think it's more music and cooking and talking to myself, or CBD. I don't know.
And hey, like, we are all humans. I want to really recognize that we are not perfect. And that is one thing I have had to learn over time. I'm not perfect, and that is okay. So definitely you guys believe that. So how to respond to triggers? I have, like I said, done different forms of therapy. The first one I did was hypnotherapy, and that one really helped me find a visualization that changed the memory into a more peaceful memory. It brought light into the actual image in my mind, my mind's eye. So seeing it as a flashback, kind of in a more peaceful way, has helped me not feel as emotional with certain memories. But also I've done EMDR therapy recently within this past year, which I highly recommend for everyone. It is a kind of movement, different senses on your hands that help get your mind to think on both sides, so that you can actually process your thoughts in a more calm state. And so what that has done is, in a therapy session, go through one of my flashbacks and process it, let it out, go through the process, and then afterwards it has less of a effect on me if I think about it. It's like, I know it's there, but it's not as emotionally impacting me. So that has helped me. So I've gone back several sessions, gone through different experiences, and brought that up to my therapist and worked through them. And then after that, it's like kind of like a relief, like, okay, like that one I dealt with, and it's not as powerful. It's not as much power over me. When I'm not in therapy, what I've been doing is breathing exercises. I have an app that I use right now called Balance, because I attempted to learn meditation in the past on my own. It was very difficult, but this app really just kind of does a like step-by-step process with you. And the breathing really helps if I'm angry, triggered by an argument with my wife or with our daughter, if we're, having some kind of, conflict. Just taking a deep breath and just stopping and just calming down for a moment. Even if the other person can't calm down, I just do it for myself, because I have to just kind of mentally separate from that experience. And just really teaching myself to be calm internally, no matter what's happening around me, has really helped. And then the visualization process in some of the treatments, like I just visualize like the room burning, that I was in, that these things happened to, and beating up, my dad, and, just changing the narrative in my mind as far as what happened to me, and make it into something that I'm more powerful. It just makes it a little more easier to digest when I think about it.
So my process is I always, no matter what type of trigger, whether it's, on a smaller scale or more extreme, I always tell myself to breathe. I don't know, for some reason when I'm triggered, like it's almost like I stop breathing. So I always tell myself to breathe, or my husband can see me being triggered and he'll tell me, just breathe, babe, so that has been a thing for me. And then also being creative. So at first I used to paint a lot of pottery. I used to go to a place and just paint for hours with my children. So that has helped. And then cooking, that has been help. It keeps me calm. Taking bubble baths and lighting candles, that helped. And like now I make candles and soap and things like that. So that has been like really good for me, because it's all about me being at a peaceful place, a calm place. So things like that have really helped me when I'm triggered.
So going off what Derricka said, I do a lot of art as well, in school to do art therapy. So I kind of utilize that, whether it's coloring, crafting, I write poetry. So when I find myself in like a really bad headspace, I'll typically just open my notebook and start writing. So that's kind of what helps me. I do a lot of meditation at night, just like put in my headphones and just listen to the people's voices. Kind of gets me in tune with my breathing. So that's what kind of helps me, or just playing. I have an emotional support dog, so just playing with her, petting her, just, yeah, spending time with her helps me.
I've kind of realized on this panel that I don't often let loved ones support me. Like I tend to want to be alone and push them away and shut them out. But I think what helps me is just hearing that they'll be there when I want to talk and when I am ready to like let them back in. Because I think like what contributes to like the anxiety is that I'm like this, and then they're gonna go and they're not going to talk to me again. So having someone say that like I'll be there when you feel better, it takes away a lot of that anxiety, because they're not going to leave and they're still gonna love and support me. And so yeah, just someone who can understand that, it really helps me.
When I'm triggered, I think the best support for me is not to be put down with the stuff I'm saying, and not to be taken personally too. Because I tend to, I guess you could call it verbal vomit. I don't know. I'm just going through stuff and I'm just saying things and I'm like all over the place. And I don't do that outside. I do it in my home. So unfortunately it's my spouse that has to listen to most of that. So I just say all these things and then I'm like, wow, that was like really mean. But like, don't take it personally, because it's just thoughts in my mind that are just scattered and they're just like kind of being put out there. And then another thing is with family, like I don't really reach out either, like you ladies are saying, like I kind of isolate as well. And I think the reason why I started doing that with friends too is because whenever I wasn't a trigger and I was trying to explain what I was going through, sometimes it got drowned out with somebody talking about something that happened to them and then theirs was worse, or, like I should be grateful, but it wasn't about measuring it of whose was worse or not. It was just, I was just trying to kind of let off how I was feeling. So I kind of shut down from talking to everybody, and it's pretty much just my spouse and maybe one of my close friends and a psychologist that I kind of let it all out. I'd say overall though, the best support that I have is just being loved, like not being judged on what I'm saying and just loving me for what I am saying and not taking it personally.
So a couple different things. I would do one of the main things, like for family and friends, is just creating a safe space where you feel like people care about you and love you, even if they don't talk about what is happening to you, like they're there. I've experienced family and people maybe, I don't know, avoiding talking to me about it because they think that it's helping to not talk about it and to kind of save me from extra pain. But for myself personally, I feel like it is helpful for me to know that someone knows and that they're willing to help me deal with it, even if they can't really handle talking about it, just to be there and just say, I know you're going through this and I'm sorry and I don't know how to deal with this, but I'm just here for you. And just, being that kind of safe space, like I said. And I kind of lost what I was going to say earlier, but the thing that I've noticed recently someone said to me was, I understand. Like, I get what you're saying. I get what is happening to you and why this is so important. Also, not saying it's in the past and just move on. Like, it's not in the past for me because I'm dealing with it right now. Like, what I'm experiencing is happening now. The event happened in the past, but the effects are happening right now. So I need support in this moment as if this is the present moment of my experience. And I think a lot of people don't really get that because they haven't gone through it. So they say, oh, don't focus on it. Don't think about it. It's in the past. It's not happening anymore. And yeah, that's true. But I need help with calming down right now. I need help with not being sad or not being angry right now. And I think just that being open to that and being understanding of the current experience that I'm going through has been helpful with the people that have supported me.
I feel like the best way for support is just being there, allowing that person to know that you're there and that you hear them. Like Kristin said, you understand them. I know, like, I don't know about you all's family, but my family is kind of like, you can see it from generation to generation. So a lot of the times, a lot of people in my family normalize it and they laugh about it. And, they, talk about these past experiences that have happened. And then for me, I don't know, I can't laugh at it. It's not funny to me, So I kind of feel like in those instances, for me, it's just, knowing that I'm with somebody that understands and doesn't think like these experiences are funny and, don't try to downplay them, I understand that you gotta, you gotta find peace in everything that you've maybe been through and things like that. But for me, it's just like knowing somebody is there, they understand and they don't find it, funny. They don't find the humor in something horrible that happened,
I think a huge thing for me is just like giving out recognition. Like when someone's like when you realize that it's so difficult for someone that's been through something like this to get out of bed and like just validating, like, you got out of bed today, like you're doing great. Or like the other day, my mom got me a cake because it was my anniversary and she's like, you survived the day. Like, just like really capitalizing on those little things that might be harder for a survivor. And just like giving them that confirmation, like, you're doing good, like you're getting through this and you're still alive.
Misconceptions. I think the misconceptions that I think people around me might have is that maybe you're overly sensitive, or that like you don't have like control of yourself, of your emotions, that you overreact to things. But I think that when you like understand the effect that trauma has on like the brain and just you in general, you're not like a moody person. It's just like what you're dealing with. So, I mean, I think the biggest misconception is that it's not real and that it's like kind of a joke thing. Like, I don't know, there's lots of meme culture about being triggered now. So I think it's kind of become not taken as seriously. So I guess maybe that would be the misconception that I would think of off the top of my head.
I pretty much agree with Siena. It's pretty much the same thing. Like, just what people are thinking. Like, it's not you're not looking for pity, or you're not trying to victimize yourself. It's not a get over it thing, you know, like it's much deeper than that. So I don't really have much to say because she pretty much said how I feel about it as well.
So big misconception for, like Siena mentioned, the isolation and just the kind of quietness is that you're okay. You know, everything's fine because you're just numb. And that was a big thing I just learned from my mom, was she didn't really help me when I first told her about it, because I really numbed out. I was just kind of like very no feelings about life in general. So she was like, you just looked fine. Like you weren't like upset. You weren't like crying out for help. And so it just seemed like everything was okay. And so I think that particular trigger of the suppression is definitely misconceived as like, you're smiling all the time, you're finishing school, you're going to work, you know, everything's fine, so you don't need any support, right? And that's just really not right. If you ask the person, you know, if they would ask me like, how are you doing, then you would know for sure what is actually going on with me if I'm ready to share that. And then, yeah, just about taking things personally, like you're an angry person, you're a cold person, you know, that's not who I am as a person. It's just the result of, you know, what has happened to me. And, you know, being seen as a victim, and you're emotional. It's like, that's just what I need to let it out. I need to get it out. So this is what it looks like, but it doesn't mean like I'm not healing. You know, I've gotten that phrase from family, like, you've gone backwards, you know, you're so emotional. It's like, no, I've actually gone really far because I'm talking about it and I'm expressing this. Like, that's a huge thing. But people don't like the idea of sharing your emotions. I think that's a bad thing. So that's a huge misconception. Like, for me, at least, I feel like you need to express whatever it is that is going on so you can move through it. So that's what I see.
I think a misconception is just like Siena said, people can feel like you're overreacting, or people can feel like you're over emotional. You know, if you're having, you know, one of those days or one of those weeks, people can feel like, oh my gosh, here she go again, you know, or something like that. But that, you know, that's kind of hard to deal with, because I mean, that's just a part of the process, you know. And then I also think a misconception is just because you're getting through the day and you're able to go about your day doing exactly what, you know, you have to do, that you're okay. You know, people assume that, but I mean, you do go from victim to survivor once you get out, because you do have to, you survive while you're in it, but then when you're out of it, you're surviving too. So they don't realize that that's just a part of it too. You've learned how to just survive, you know? So I think that that's a big misconception too, that just because I know how to get through the day, you know, that doesn't mean I'm okay, you know? So that's some of the misconceptions for me.
Yeah, so the misconception that I've seen most is kind of going off what Derricka and Kristin said, is just that if you're not broken down, then you're not going through trauma, and you haven't experienced trauma. That's something that I've gotten a lot since I was just an undergrad, is like, I would post about on my Instagram, I would use my Instagram as advocacy, and I'd post about my experience, and people would be like, oh, but you're always smiling. And it's like, because you learn to do that. You really can't just spend your whole life crying, or you're not going to get done what you need to get done. And you learn how to live with it and go through the day, and kind of bottle that stuff up. And I think the biggest misconception is that if you're not wearing your trauma all the time, then you're not going through it.
I would say that experiencing triggers after what you've gone through is normal. It's not, it doesn't make you, like, for lack of a better word, crazy. I don't like that word, but like, I'm trying to think what else is hard. I guess, I don't know if this is inspirational, but kind of what I wish someone had told me is that it's okay to say like, yeah, like this sucks. And like, you don't have to try to put like a good positive spin on it. Like, it sucks, but there is a community, even if it's not around you, there is a community that wants to help you through it and wants to see you thrive. And yeah, it'll be hard, and you might like be dealing with triggers all your life, but you'll get better at coping with them. And yeah. And I think even just for myself, I'm learning like, don't bottle things up, like trust people, say things. So yeah, thank you for that.
My advice would probably be to take your time, breathe. You don't need to be in a rush. I used to think I had to fix it right away because it was bothering me. I'd lay in bed and feel bad for some of the things I did and said. And, like, take your time. And like, it is good to open up to people. I agree with that because we need humans to have life experiences and stuff. But at the same time, I'd also say on the other side of that is don't listen to everybody, because sometimes the opinions can kind of really crowd your mind, and then you start second questioning yourself as well, right? So yes, open up to people, but also don't take everything they're saying. Just kind of do what works for you. And even God took 7 days. So that's what I gotta say about that.
I like that, Sonia. Definitely you need to do what's best for you. And I would say what has worked for me is, and I recommend anyone to do, is learn about the brain, as Siena mentioned, and what happens to the brain with trauma. There's 2 books that I've recently found, one called The Body Keeps the Score, and the second is Complex PTSD, the workbook. Those 2 have phenomenally put into words my personal experience of my mind and what has happened to me because of the trauma. So that just has given me peace of mind. Like, someone understands me. Like, there's words to describe what I'm experiencing. And I feel like that can support many other survivors as well. And yeah, take your time. It's not something easy to just go through and just knock it out, because you will get triggered, but it's better for me, I say it's better to go through it and get it out and allow yourself to heal, and don't let anyone tell you not to hide it. That is the biggest thing that I am a huge advocate for, is do not hide, do not keep things secret because people say it's going to shame the family or it's uncomfortable, and oh, don't talk about that, you're going to make yourself feel bad and other people feel bad. No, if it happened to you, it happened, and it's okay to say it, because that gives the power to the abuser to keep control over your life and the rest of existence. And I am huge about not giving that person or people more power than they already took. So get it out, let it out, even if it's one person, so that they don't have that power anymore.
My advice would be to just take it a day at a time. Even if sometimes you have to break that down and take it, a minute at a time, an hour at a time. I would also say make sure to congratulate yourself on the baby steps that you take, because what people don't realize is, when you're on a healing journey, you just never know how long that will take, and then those baby steps are going to be the very things that turn into huge steps, like affirmations or journaling, or or if you do, you're a creative and you do some type of artist work, or just learning to talk about it with one person, that might turn into you talking to, a group full of people about how to heal. You just never know. So I would just say, just take it a day at a time, or however long you need to take it, but just make sure you congratulate yourself on every step that you take, because you're not in the cycle no more, so you're breaking those chains for yourself and you're trying to move forward.
My advice would be that oh my gosh, I'm forgetting what I wanted to say. Give me a second.
Yeah, take your time.
Oh, okay, I got it. So my advice would be to take the time that you need to take care of yourself, whether it's 5 minutes before bed or you stop and get yourself a donut. Like, take that time and do those extra things to make yourself feel better, especially when you're feeling triggered, because you do deserve to feel your best, just even on your hard days. So yeah, just taking the time to take care of yourself.
Hi, I'm Kristin, and I'm a survivor.
Hi, my name is Siena, and I'm a survivor.
Hi, I'm Sonia, aka Miss Bliss, and I'm a survivor.
Hi, I'm Derricka, and I am a survivor.
Hi, my name is Molly, and I'm a survivor.